Alright, listen, I love DC's compact comics. It's a really good initiative that makes comics more accessible. The idea of taking some cues from manga in terms of formatting and pricing is a really good one, and it works out really well. There can be minor problems with shrinking the books down to the right size for printing, but aside from that, there's not really a downside to them. I remember buying Far Sector and Batman the Court of Owls at Comic-Con and really liking both of them. The choices in what they're using for these books are generally really good, and I've thoroughly enjoyed most of the books I've read in this format. Today, I want to go through every DC compact book from the first year and rank them. There are currently 24 DC compact books, with another 13 on the way. 10 of these books were released in the first wave in 2024. I have read all of them, if not in a DC compact book, in some other format. To properly evaluate how good these all work, we need to go over what makes a book like this good or bad in the first place. Firstly, the story. My personal enjoyment, how much depth there is, and what kind of conversations it engages with. This is just the general quality of the book in whatever subjective way that can be measured. I'm taking into account both the writing and art for this. Secondly, the DC compact line is specifically engineered to be easy to pick up, so we have to take into account what kind of background knowledge something requires. Most of these are perfectly standalone, but if the book itself has issues with how we step into the story or what it expects the reader to know, that does detract from it as a DC compact title. Finally, what do I think of the choice to collect this story? Leaving aside whether the story is good or bad doesn't make sense as a choice. Are there obvious alternatives to what would be preferable, or does it work as it is? In order of importance, these are the criteria I will be judging them by. One of the first two books to come out as a compact is Watchmen, and Watchmen is a really good book. It's a really impressive work in a number of ways. I don't really have to tell you that Watchmen is good, let's be real, you've heard that before. It's a really good example of DC's publishing that is disconnected from their main universes. They've gone on to publish a bunch more of that in DC compact since, like V for Vendetta and Y the Last Man, but Watchmen is the first, and is a pretty great start. My personal enjoyment of it was very high. It's a very well thought out and critical book, which I appreciate. The art and paneling is incredible and really adds to the story. While it's a great read, it's one that relies on an understanding of its genre and medium. This is, to be fair, really obvious and truthfully a very low bar. It's one of those cases where the more you've read, the better it is. This is not a book that you should step into as your first comic book because it deconstructs the medium as well as the genre, but it is absolutely sufficiently iconic and impressive for it to warrant being chosen as one of the first DC compact titles. Watchmen is going right in the middle of the S tier. The second of the first two was Batman the Court of Owls saga, which collects the first few issues of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's new 52 Batman run, focusing on the Court of Owls. I am somewhat mixed on this book. It's certainly not bad, but I don't know if I'd call it good either. It's there, and it's not the worst starting point for Batman, but it's also just not that interesting. The Court of Owls is a decent idea, I don't mind it at all, but I can't help but think that this is a little undercooked. The art is mostly good. The only thing I have against it is that it's somewhat difficult to tell Dick, Tim, and Damian apart, which is, a little weird. The Court of Owls saga works as a jumping on point for Batman, but I wouldn't recommend it for that. I can't help but feel like there's so many other books to collect in DC compact for Batman specifically, and this part of the new 52 just isn't really all that. Chip Zdarsky's The Night and The Long Halloween are examples of this, and I really like what I've read of Alan Grant's time on the character. Of all the books to collect in this format, this just doesn't really hit for me. With all that in mind, this book lands in a comfortable B tier. Next up is All-Star Superman. I have had this sitting on my shelf for a while, and I'm very glad I finally read it. The book is a deep examination of Superman's world and the ideas within it. My personal favorite issues were number 5, which focused on Lex, and 11 and 12, which finished the story beautifully. Every issue tackles a different core element of Superman, whether that be a supporting character or a core value, and it's done really well most of the time. My only complaint is that there's a couple of issues in there that somewhat drag or feel out of place somehow. It's difficult to quantify, but it does make the whole thing feel just a bit less cohesive. Not a big deal, but still an issue. All-Star Superman takes elements from all across the Superman mythos. There's references to older Superman stories, with the Fortress of Solitude, a reference to Jimmy's cross-dressing days, and an overall reverence for and deep understanding of the entire world. Like Watchmen, this is a very obvious choice for the DC compact line, and it's one of DC's biggest books. It's not great as a starter for Superman. You're better off reading a fair bit of Superman comics before this one, but it's a really good book that's absolutely worth the trouble. High A tier. Far Sector is more or less the perfect example of how to use the DC compact concept, in my opinion. It's a fully standalone book that requires no previous knowledge and creates a nuanced world with sharp social critique that can be applied in a number of different ways. I really like this story, and I can't think of a better example of a book for this format. I don't want to spoil you on anything, so I just recommend you read it. High S tier. And so we go from the best book in this wave to the worst one. Listen, I don't hate Batman Hush as much as some people, but it's not great. If you're not familiar with Batman all that much, it's a good way of getting acquainted with his his world and the major characters in it. And the mystery is fine. I prefer this to the animated movie. It's just kinda there though. The art's fine, the story's alright, but ultimately it's missing key components of the world, like Batgirl for example. This is kind of the opposite of All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman is better the more Superman media you've engaged with, while Batman Hush is worse the more Batman media you've engaged with. If it's your very first thing, not bad at all. If you've seen all the movies, read something like Year One or The Long Halloween, and grew up on Batman the Animated Series, I'd caution against it. With how much is available for Batman, again, I'd prefer a bunch of other books to get published like this first. It's not surprising that they went for this with Hush 2 or Hatoosh coming out right around this time, I think. And it is so popular, but still. There's plenty of ways that you can read Hush. Give me something a little better, more interesting about Batman, and you have me sold. This is going in C tier. My feelings on Wonder Woman Earth 1 are a little complicated. I haven't read too much Wonder Woman, and I know that there's a lot of strong opinions about this book from Wonder Woman fans, but I can't help but appreciate the depth this comic goes into. Unlike most series, it's not separated into issues, but 3 books that each explore gender and sexuality in a different way. The first book is definitely my favorite. The way it uses paneling and non-linear storytelling to its advantage and engages with complicated issues of sex are really appealing to me. It's definitely a somewhat uncomfortable read at points, with some of the elements of how it presents Paradise Island and the Amazons and their ideology, but it does a good job of activating that for the benefit of the broader discussion. This book isn't something I necessarily recommend as a first Wonder Woman book because it's a reimagining that takes plenty of liberties in how it depicts its characters for the purposes of the story, but it does so in a way that I really respect. It's a surprising choice to collect in DC Compact, especially as Wonder Woman's first, but I don't hate it. It does have some issues, especially as we go into the second and third books, and it's not the easiest to get into, so I'm not putting it at S tier, but it is a high A tier. If you're at all familiar with me, you will know I somewhat dislike the Joker. That being said, this is probably the best you're gonna get with him. I'm not gonna pretend that it's a great starting point or that it makes sense to put this in a compact book, but it's pretty fun. The use of Johnny Frost as a POV character works really well. The story is fine, not too much special, but broadly interesting. It goes far into its aesthetic and it pays off. It all works. The world feels very coherent, and as a one-off story, it's good. There's not much else to say about this. Solid B tier. Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens is a bit of a weird choice to collect as a compact. It shows Harley, Ivy, and Selina moving in together and dealing with some stuff along the way. It's not a bad book by any means, and I like Catwoman. Poison Ivy is pretty neat too. I'm just not too hot on Harley Quinn. That's kind of whatever for me. It's a fun book, decently easy to pick up. Not my favorite thing, but not bad. Very middle of the road. B tier. American Vampire is a difficult one for me. Like Watchmen, it's completely disconnected from the DC universe, but the extent to which it hits for me is still hard to describe. It's not bad, and it's not great either. This collection isn't the full story, and that's somewhat felt. It takes a while to get started, especially in the relationship between some characters. There's really strong elements to it, and it's a good start, but it's definitely a story that needs what comes next to feel complete. Very accessible, not a bad choice for compact in any way, but not a complete story either. I'll give this a middle A tier. That just leaves Catwoman, Trail of the Catwoman. I'm very mixed on this book. I love Ed Brubaker, Darwin Cook is obviously a win, and the actual story that the book is about is great. However, there's more than just the first 9 issues of that Catwoman run in this collection, and the organization is not good. It's not good. Selina's Big Score and Trail of the Catwoman are also collected in this book, but they put Selina's Big Score first. That came out in 2002, while Trail of the Catwoman came out in 2001. I was a little confused with this whole thing, because it felt like reading the same thing twice for some part of it. Not a big issue at all, but still a small hurdle. Other than that though, this is great. It's a great choice for something to collect in this format, taking the change of Catwoman from a villain into an anti-hero and showing it off in full. Great story, great choice, relatively easy to get into, high A tier. Here's a last look at the final tier lists for the first year of DC Compact. I think pretty highly of this format, and I'm glad that it's evolving into the state it's in now. This year's wave is almost coming to an end, so you can expect a follow-up video to this one somewhat soon. Definitely make sure to pick up some of these books when you have a chance. They're cheap and available in a lot of places. If you're just starting out, Catwoman and Far Sector are the best options for you. That all being said, let me know which of these books is your favorite in the comments. Don't forget to read all the best comics, and have a good one.